Well, hello, my name is Daryl, and welcome to Daryl's Rope Routine. The idea of this mystery is to create the illusion that these ropes are the same length, all identical in length. To do that, I just gather the opposite ends. I say the magic words. Stretcho, stretcho, stretch. Stretch and stretch until they all become identical in length. Can I hear a hallelujah on that, brothers and sisters? Would you like to be able to perform a magic trick that you could do up close for one person? Or perform it for 5 or 6 people surrounded at a cocktail party? You take that knot, squeeze it gently. What that does is that creates the illusion that the knot disappears. Actually, of course, the knot does not disappear. It's still there. It's just that it's very, very small. And it's hiding on the inside. Now, you can't see it. In fact, I've been doing this for probably, I don't know, say 25 years for now. There's more. Watch the idea is to make the ends change places with the middle. I take that first end, I squeeze it into my fist until it becomes so small, so finely minute. It remains invisible until it lands on the other. Watch the second end. I squeeze it. It goes through the hollow core of the rope. Lands on the other side. Now I've got the ends where the middle used to be. The middle is where the ends used to be, which in itself is quite a feat. So like I say, if you want to learn a great routine, you can perform literally under any performing conditions, anytime, any place, ordinary props, everything could be examined, automatically reset. You know the routine. Daryl's rope routine. It is the rope of mystery. I know you're going to love it. No, please, no. No, please, keep your seats. I feel good. I feel the love. I feel the power of the brotherhood of magic. Are you ready for action? Wow, all right, ready for action. To the untrained eye, this probably looks like just an ordinary piece of rope. You see, anybody can go to a magic store and buy a magic tricky prop and perform a tricky trick and then call themselves a magician. Get business cards printed, the works. I think that's the same thing as going to a music store, buying a player piano, pressing the button to make the music happen, and then calling yourself a musician. It doesn't work that way. It's not the prop, it's the mind. Magic happens in your mind. That's the idea. So I'm going to show you, I like to think of myself as a magic minimalist. The maximum amount of magic with the minimum amount of ordinary objects, like this. Looks like just a piece of rope, yeah? To my mind, I prefer to think of this as the rope of mystery. Ooh. I know, it's scary stuff. That's how I felt first time I heard about it. And rope is my friend. All I have to do is blow on the ends. That makes the ends of the rope very, very soft, very easy to remove. Yeah, you are not laughing now. So now I've got a piece of rope that has no ends. Just good, strong, solid. Yeah, I know. Good. Oh, good face. That was great. I know, fool. I know where the ends are. The ends are right here. All I have to do is take the ends, give a little squeeze, turn the inside to the outside, and of course vice versa. That puts everything back the way it was at the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, the rope of mystery. Thank you. Thank you very much. You're beautiful. No, please. Thank you. Thank you. You're too kind. Oh, wait, no, that's another show. Later. Here's something you can do. You tie the rope, the ends together with a double knot. Not a single knot. No, that's too easy. No, I laugh at single knots. Double knots. Look at that. Oh, man. Okay, I just want to see who's paying attention. What this does is this gives me a loop or a circle of rope. Of course, if I cut the rope any place, I would have 2 pieces. But I have no scissors, but that's all right, because I'm a professional. I am too. That wasn't a joke. I can fake it. Oh, subarashi. Normally what I do is I cut the rope exactly opposite from the tied ends. This way both lengths would be exactly identical in length. As you can see this evening, I'm a little off. La, 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 la. So I'll take the first end like this. I'll put the second end where the first end used to be. Then I say the magic words. That puts the ropes together back to the original condition. Ladies and gentlemen, the rope of mystery. The rope of mystery. Thank you, the rope of mystery. I was acting. Here's something you can all go home and try. Oh yeah, you could try it. It won't work. Just try it. Get a piece of rope. Any length will do. Fold the rope in half. If you do that, the ends will be together on one side. Of course, opposite the ends will be the middle. That's it. No, that's not it. There's more. Watch. The idea is to make the ends change places with the middle. Watch very closely. Now, there are several ways to do this. Here's one method. Not the preferred technique. Here's a much better way. Watch that first end. And you can make up your own jokes here. I take that first end. I'm having far too much fun. I squeeze it into my fist until it becomes so small, so finely minute, it becomes invisible to the naked eye. I can then toss it into the air. It remains invisible until it lands on the other. Now, for lack of technical variation, I'll repeat the illusion. Watch the second end. I squeeze it. It goes through the hollow core of the rope. Lands on the other side. Now I've got the ends where the middle used to be. The middle is where the ends used to be, which in itself is quite a feat, although I seem to be the only one who thinks so. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the rope of mystery. Even my little daughter says, Dad, you are overacting. Sometimes I do this after the thunderous applause finally subsides. There's usually somebody from this general area here who seems to think this is a piece of phony, fake magician's tricky rope. To those people, I simply say, this is not phony piece of rope. I got the phony stuff right here. This is real stuff, real rope. You may examine that yourself. Really pull on it, make sure it doesn't stretch, it doesn't shrink, it doesn't come apart. That's good. You might have noticed the ends of the rope have been dipped in glue. The glue has dried hard. It does not go back together. There's a reason that I glued the ends of the rope. It's the exact same reason that we all have feet. Okay. I'll just leave it at that. No, our feet prevent our legs from fraying at the ends. Oof, what a thought. Sorry about that. I can't get that picture out of my mind. I can't let you see this rope. This is the tricky stuff. But I'll tell you what, for you, I'll give you a little piece here. Just check that puppy out. And really pull on it. Make sure it doesn't stretch. It doesn't shrink. It's good, strong, solid stuff. If you know the secret, but only if you know the secret of the magic rope, you can tie a knot in the middle like this. You can take that knot, squeeze it gently. What that does is that creates the illusion that the knot disappears. Actually, of course, the knot does not disappear. It's still there. It's just that it's very, very small. And it's hiding on the inside. Now, you can't see it, but you can feel it right there. There's a little bump. But rather than take the time to let everybody feel the bump, what I'll do instead is just give it a shake like this. That reforms the knot from the inside out. You might want to check that rope out. Make sure that's a good, solid piece. Now, who among you has the big one? That would be you. Would you please toss that rope to me if you'll be so kind? Toss it to me on the count of 3. Oh, never mind. That was a setup. I was just messing with you. Now you... See, I've seen all these tricks before, so I have to amuse myself. Hello, boys and girls. How are you today? Now, tell me the truth. You examined this rope yourself? Yes. Yes, you did. I watched. Did you find anything tricky? Or would you say, in your professional opinion, that this is an ordinary piece of rope? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it yourself. Another satisfied customer. It's a good, strong, solid piece. How about the little piece? You got the little piece? Would you toss that to me on the count of 3? 1, 2, 3. Huh? And this is okay as well? Yeah. Now, please notice that these ropes are different lengths. Nah. Now, normally I don't have to mention this, but every once in a while I do this for a group that has been drinking. Sometimes the audience does not notice. Now, I might as well tell you in advance. If you do not notice that they are different lengths now, what I'm about to show you would be even more pointless. Watch closely. 2 different lengths. In fact, all 3 are different. May I? 3 different sized pieces of rope. The idea of this mystery is to create the illusion that these ropes are the same length, all identical in length. To do that, I just gather the opposite ends. I say the magic words. Stretcho, stretcho, stretcho. I wrote that part myself. And they will magically, mysteriously, and therefore entertainingly stretch and stretch until they all become identical in length. Can I hear a hallelujah on that, brothers and sisters? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. That's right. I got hallelujah right on here. That's right, my friend. That's right. You got to praise the chord. All right. Some of these I do just for myself. 3 pieces of rope. Now, do you remember just a few short moments ago? They were completely different lengths. Were you here then?
I do remember.
Now, I want you to see, I'm not messing around up here. This is serious business. Here's rope number 1. It's a good, strong, solid piece. It does not stretch. It does not shrink. Except now rope number 1, that's this one, is exactly the same length as rope number 2, which, by the way, also does not stretch or shrink. And rope number 2 is exactly the same length as rope number 3. It's a very convincing illusion. But sometimes I do this. People still say, oh, you're just doing that phony sleight of hand stuff. No, I am not. I'll be doing the phony sleight of hand stuff later. Right now, to prove there's no sleight of hand involved, I will tie the ropes together with double knots. Now, with the ropes tied together with double knots, there's no way I could cheat, even if I wanted to. Is anybody buying any of this? No? All right. I'll tie them together with double knots, making sleight of hand impossible. Then all I have to do is gather the ropes, say the secret magic words, which I'll say out loud. The magic words, shrinko, shrinko, shrinko. And even though they're securely tied together, look, they change back to their 3 completely different original lengths. Now, I don't expect you to take my word for it. I wouldn't. So I'm going to let you look at them yourself. You might want to double check that piece, make sure it's a good, strong, solid piece, doesn't stretch or shrink, not to be confused with the middle-sized piece. That'd be for yourself right here, and the long piece for you. And that brings this mystery, ladies and gentlemen, to its dramatic conclusion. Stretching ropes of India. Well, hello, my name is Daryl, and welcome to Daryl's Rope Routine. As you may have guessed, it's a routine using rope. That is correct. Now, let's talk about the rope first of all. If you're going to do this routine, or pretty much any routine with rope, I would highly recommend you get the best possible quality rope you can find. Personally, I have searched the world. There was a time when every time I'd go to a different country for a magic convention, I'd say to the dealers, well, what's the rope you use in this country? And I'd check it out. Some of it's pretty stiff, some of it's pretty thick but hollow, some of it's very thin. This is the best I have ever found, and this is what I use exclusively. I like to call it Daryl's Thick Rope. Not to be confused with Daryl's Extra Thick Rope, which is similar but thicker. And really, the quality's not quite as good. It's a looser weave, it's hollower. This has got a very nice tight weave, but most importantly, it's very supple. 100% cotton, very easy to work with. It's a treat. I know a lot of customers, that's all they do, is they buy rope, one length at a time, because this is all they use. So this is the rope. Now, if you want to decide on the lengths to use, your own personal body size determines the personal size set for you. Just do your arm span. Stretch out your arms as far as you can. That will be the length of the long piece. Okay? Then you take, for the short piece, same idea, but you stretch out your hand as wide as you can get it. And it's from the very tip of the little finger to the very tip of your thumb. That will determine the length of the short piece. So that's the long and the short piece. Once you have the long piece and the short piece that fit your particular body size, you just simply loop the short piece around the middle of the long piece, and that will give you the exact dimension for the middle-sized piece. This is basically, well, it is. This is the professor's nightmare setup. So the short piece wrapped around the middle of the long piece, even up the ends at the top, go all the way down, and they should be even at the bottom, just like that. That is the perfect size set. Now, as far as the ends of the rope, this is important too. It's a personal choice. I like to dip my ends in glue, like a white glue, because white glue, like Elmer's glue or school glue, it dries clear. A good thing about having it dry clear is you don't have any colors. You can't even tell that it's glued, so it doesn't show at all. Another option, in fact, a better option probably would be this stuff called Fray Be Gone or Fray No More. It's got some catchy name, Fray Away maybe. Just go to a place that sells sewing supplies, materials, that type of thing, and say, do you have some kind of a glue substance that prevents fraying? When material, you cut the material, you don't want it to fray, that's perfect. A good thing about that is I think it's washable. So you could dip the ends in glue, or this Fray Be Gone, or I don't know what it's called, but it's Fray something. It probably goes by many names. Let it dry a little bit till it's a little tacky. Use your finger. Make sure that you cover every strand of that rope, every thread, and then sort of flatten it out. It dries perfectly. So that's a good thing. Do that. If you don't care about it, then you could just cut it and let it ravel or unravel. Or to me, that doesn't look good, the natural finish. I would, rather than do that, I would cut it and maybe tie a knot. Sometimes I'll do that. If I'm tired or I'm lazy and I don't have time, or I don't have the right materials, I'll just tie a knot and pull it very, very tightly so it won't untie, and then cut it pretty close to the knot. That works. Another option is to use tape. Tape is pretty good, especially if it's white tape. For this routine, you don't really want it to show. So if you put colored tape on the ends, there will be a few moments in the routine where that's a mistake. So make it either clear tape or white tape that matches the color of the rope. Another option is to sew it. Now, I know a lot of people that just get a sewing machine and sew back and forth. I've never done that personally. I have used thread, so I would get some matching thread, like white thread, tie a knot or wrap it around several times, and then tie a few knots. So that will prevent it from fraying. And then you cut it, so it'll fray just a little bit, but actually that makes a nice touch. So the final thing is the glue, and that's personally my favorite. Now, the setup is simple. What you do is you start like this, and it should be very supple rope. That's one of the most important things. Here's how you tell how supple your rope is. You just take a little piece about this long, the short piece, which is the tip from the little finger to the thumb, hold it by the middle and drape it over a finger. Both of the ends should be pointing pretty much straight down. That's completely different from this, for example. Now, this is supple, but it's not as supple. I mean, this is a knitted rope. And do you see the difference? I'm sure you see the difference. This is the rope to use. This is much better. Now, the setup is you take the long piece of rope, and this is the original setup that's used in George Sands' routine, rope-sational. You take the long piece, fold it in half again, fold it in half a third time, so basically it's folded into eighths. You pull one end downwards, so it's completely separated from the other end. You want to be able to find that end quickly and easily. Then you take the short piece and you tie a simple overhand knot around it. Now, in the original Sensational rope, I remember he suggested that you tuck these ends of the short piece into the body of the bulk or of the bundle, and so nobody can see it. That's not truly necessary. If you bring this out, and as long as you keep it moving, nobody's ever going to say, hey, how come there's 4 ends on that rope? You just, you don't see it. Okay? Now, a nice thing about this is that you can put this in your bag and it's ready to go. You need to have the middle-sized piece somewhere where you can get to it quickly with your left hand. If you have the pocket space, and if you don't mind using up your pocket space, you can put it somewhere in one of your left pockets, your left coat pocket or your left trousers pocket. I don't do that. I mean, I really value my pocket space. I don't want to use my pockets unless I absolutely have to. So here's what I do. After this is set up, the long piece and the short piece, I'll take the middle-sized piece, fold it in half like this, and just tie it doubled over like this in a loose overhand knot around the other bundle. So now all 3 pieces of rope are together. And the good thing about that is you can put this in your case wherever you carry your props. I carry things in a doctor's bag. You could literally have all my props in the doctor's bag, and I could shake it up, mix them all up. It doesn't matter. I just reach in, I grab this, I'm ready to start the routine. Now, like I said, the middle-sized piece needs to be someplace where you can get to it quickly with your left hand. If you have a table, perfect. If you don't have a table, put it in your pocket. But I don't keep it there from the very beginning. What I would do is start with the bundle like this and say, here's a little mystery using some rope. I can't let you see this one. This one's very special. Untie the middle-sized piece. Keep it folded. So this is folded in quarters. You want it to be folded. You don't want to untie it and then place it on the table like this. I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world if you did, but if you have a choice, and you do, untie it, keep it folded, and put it somewhere on the left. If you don't have a table, put it in your pocket, just temporarily. Now, as a courtesy to you, I'm going to explain every detail of this routine step by step, and to make it easier to follow, I'm going to use 3 different colored ropes, okay? So for the long piece, I will use this white piece because it's the best quality rope I've ever found. The little piece, instead of using this one, I will use a blue piece, all right? So the setup, remember, is you take the long piece, that's the long piece, fold it in half a second time, fold it in half a third time, pull one end downwards so it's separated from the rest. That's pretty easy to find. Then you take the short piece and tie it with a loose overhand knot to hold the bundle together. All right? Now, these ends have been tied in a knot, so they're even more obvious. But don't forget, if it's a white piece of rope, if the ends have been dipped in glue, like the long ends of the long piece, they'll never know. So you pull this out, you take off the first rope, you put it down. For the rest of this routine explanation, I'll use a red piece for the middle-sized piece. So you put that down somewhere on your left. Here's the first thing you do. After you show everything's very clean, you hold the bundle in your right hand. Now, I'm going to assume that you're right-handed. If you're not, you'll have to change everything around yourself. But this is how I do it, so this is how I'm going to explain it. Hold the bundle in your right hand. Your palm-up left hand just grabs the bottom of that pulled down end, like this. Palm up, grab it with your little finger and ring finger. So you're here, you're here. So far, so what? But you do that, and then you get the little piece, and you start to untie the little piece around like that, and one end of the little piece goes into the left hand alongside of the end of the long piece. So you're holding them together. And I like to just throw this up in the air, make a big move out of it. And when I open it up, I like to look at the right-hand side, because the right hand is the clean hand. As a habit, I just like the idea of looking at the clean hand. If you've got two hands and one hand has got something sneaky or tricky in it, look at the other hand. It's the same thing. If one hand has a thumb tip in it, look at the other hand as you're showing your hands empty. So for this, you unbundle it, you look over there, I stretch it out just to show that it's solid. Now, this move is used a few times in the routine, so let me take just a couple moments to explain it in detail. Very simple, but very important. The left hand, in this case, the hand that has the short piece of rope, is going to be crossed over the right end. So the left end goes over the right end. Now, where you cross it's important. You're making like the letter X, and each part of the letter X should be the same length. So in other words, you're going to cross like at the middle of that little piece, right there. In other words, don't cross it like this, where they're too small. Don't have this hanging down and do it like this. Just hold the rope so that about the same amount is sticking out from each side. Now, that's another little tip. To me, it looks perfectly natural to hold the rope like this as long as both ends are extended about the same amount from each hand. It's another personal thing. I just don't think this looks as good to hold rope like this. It's like, well, why is that not quite right? Or the other way is to hold one at the very tip and one with a bunch of rope sticking out. Just try to get in the habit of holding them so about the same amount is sticking out from each hand. I would move up a little bit on it, like that, inch up forward a couple of moves, cross this over, so now all three ends are the same length. That end, that end, that end. Okay? So that's pretty simple. You just cross it. Now here's the move. It's the switch. The long end, which of course is the white end, goes into the left hand. The short end, the blue end, comes out. That's one of the most important moves in the entire routine. And it's just done, it looks like you're just twirling one end around the other. Now, if you stopped here, you'd be in this position. That's not a good position to be in. So you don't stop there. What you do is you follow through. You say the two ends, what I'm going to do is just wrap one around the other. That's the switch. As soon as you finish the switch, give that one end that just came out of the hand, that was switched in, one complete extra revolution around the rope, and show it like this. Now, when the ropes are white, this is a perfect display. That's a little John Cornelius touch, too. I think that looks great. It just looks like one end is swirled around the other. Okay? And when the rope is nice and supple, as the white rope is, it looks pretty good when you have it hanging down like this. Now, you take this part of the rope from the right hand, put it into the left hand, and your right hand now grabs the middle of that little piece of rope, and you blow, you do whatever magic gesture you want to do, and you remove the ends. Now, it looks like the ends are just coming right off the rope. That's a lovely little moment. Now, some people, I've seen them do this. I mean, you do what you want, but I think it looks better to pull off the ends and have the ends together. So right now, it doesn't look like, you don't pull it off this way and show it as a short piece of rope. I think it looks better to pull it off. You're pulling off the ends. Now, the audience shouldn't really know what's inside your hand. I mean, are those two separate little tiny pieces of rope that were the ends that were pulled off? Or do they just disintegrate into nothingness? They don't, or is it really a piece folded in half? Nobody knows, doesn't matter. But just make it look like you're pulling off the ends. You show the ends. Then you temporarily put them someplace so that you can use your right hand. Now, I put them under my arm. I've seen some people do it and they stick them in their mouth. I don't like the idea of sticking the rope in the mouth. And some people I've even seen use like buck teeth. They'd stick it under their upper lip and, oh, I got buck teeth. You know, it's your call. But I just take the ropes, show the ends, put them here. And the only reason for that is so that the right hand is now available to apparently show this piece of rope as if it has no ends. Now remember, you did the switch, so the two ends are held together in your left hand. You've got a little bit hanging out like this. That's where the little piece was. You pulled it off, put it there. This is the move to show a circle of rope. It's fun to do. Do this in front of the mirror. You will amuse yourself. I like to think of this as the Di Vernon linking ring move. You know that move where you've got that ring, that linking ring, the one that has that hole in it? And you hide the hole, you hide the key with your hand, and apparently you're showing the entire circumference of the ring. It really looks great with a solid metal linking ring. The same idea is done with this. I like to wiggle the fingers a little bit, both hands, as if I'm just drawing it through my hands, until you're about here, almost completely like that. Maybe a little bit short of that. So it's big smiley face, happy smiley mouth. The right hand goes in front of the left hand, so it's doubled. You drop this, your right hand is here now, grab here on the left side, and do the same thing again. So you never let go of these two ends. You just hold them together in your left hand. Everything else, you are acting. This is called acting. Once again, that's the dirty hand, so usually when I do this, I'll look there, if anywhere. You can pull it, that's a nice thing. Just to show solid, it's like almost everywhere I show you, it's solid. It's like this is a piece of rope with no ends. Some people have other moves that they do. This is the basic thing. That's all I like. I just do that, show that it's solid. Now you're going to set up to put the ends back on the rope. Here's how you do it. Remember, the real ends are here, held together in your left hand. You just put the rope back in the position it was in before you pulled the ends off. That is to say, just a small amount like this here. Okay? Now your right hand is available to take the two ends back. You do the same moves, basically, that you did to take the ends off, but in reverse, and that puts them back on. So this is what it looks like. You see, if I put the ends back together, you're going to do the switch again, but this time in reverse. The short end of the rope goes into your left hand, and then the long end comes out. That's it. After the long end comes out, you give that end an extra revolution, and now you can show it, and it looks like the ends are just twirled around each other again, like they were a moment ago. And I like to let them hang down a little bit. Pause at this point, because this is a good mental picture for the audience to see. This is what they saw right before you pulled the ends off. So this is what I want the audience to see right before you put them back on. You blow, and it almost looks like the ends melt back onto the rope. And you can show how solid it is. Here's another tip, and this happened to me once. When you pull, really hold on tightly to these two ends together. You don't want to do this and get carried away with your presentation and let go. That puts you in a very vulnerable position. So it happened to me once during a live show. It was in New York, so I made a joke out of it. And I just kept going. It was great. So you do this. You showed that the ends came off, a circle of rope. The ends go back on. You're in this position. And now you're ready for the next phase. The next phase begins the same. Left end crosses over the right end. Your right thumb goes right where the ropes cross. You do the exact same switch. The long end goes in. The short end comes out. Once the short end comes out, you give that end a complete revolution around. You display it again. I really think that looks so good, especially when it's all the same color. It just looks very convincing. Now you tie the Dr. Jacob Daly knot. I think this is in the Yal Baker book, Pet Secrets, under the title, The Doctor Cuts a Rope. He uses, I think, for the cut and restored rope. But the idea is this. You show the rope. You tie this. Now, when you show it, you sort of pull that short piece taut, so it's straight. Okay, you see how the blue piece is kind of straight across. Then you tie it in a simple overhand knot pretty loosely around the white end. Now what that does is it shows you that it's the white piece of rope, the long piece, that's doing all the wrapping around. A good thing about that is when I pull on the white ends, the long piece, the audience will actually see the ends of the shorter piece tighten. I hope that looks good, but it looks great. You tie the knot, you pull it, and they see it tighten. So that's a very convincing knot. And what that does basically is it upsets that overhand knot, turns it into a sliding knot, exactly the same as in the 20th century silks. I keep getting it confused. It's the 20th, no, it's not the 20th century silks, see? It's the sympathetic silks, where you tie these three silks together and the knots jump to the other side. Well, it's upsetting the square knot. It's basically what you do. So you pull it, that turns it into that. You can hold that knot with your right hand. Remember, the left hand is still holding the two real ends together. And what you're going to do is apparently you're just going to stroke down the rope. It's supposed to look like you're doing this, like you're just going down like that with this hand. But what you really do is, because you've got the two ends there and you're holding the knot here, and that is now a slip knot, you're actually holding onto the two ends tightly, and you go down and you're taking the two ends along for the ride like that. So you do this, not completely to the other end, but a little bit, almost to the end. So there's a little bit left over. And the reason for that is now you can show it as a circle of rope. And I like to say, if I cut the rope any place, I would have 2 pieces. That's a kind of nice display. And now when you're ready to cut the rope, apparently you're going to cut the rope with your fingers. And here's the secret to that. I drop this, so the 2 ends are here. You could just cut it and drop one end, but to me that's not quite as nice. I like a little crispness in my routine. So what I'll do is this. It's a small touch, but it makes a difference, I think. The thumb of the left hand, which is holding the 2 ends together, remember, it goes underneath the rope. So the rope is sort of draped over the top of the thumb like this. Okay? So you do this, the ends go down, I do this. So the thumb is here. The index finger goes to the opposite side and holds it. So from this view, it looks like that. When I cut with my fingers, at the same time that I cut, I'm going to pop that end up. And as soon as I pop that end up, I'm going to drop that end down. So they see a nice, crisp end. So that's the idea. So you do this, that goes down here. You say, I'm going to cut it. I'm getting ready now when I say I'm going to cut it. Hey, misdirection. As you're doing that, your thumb is going underneath here. And as soon as you cut, now watch this. It's like you cut it. They see the end. That goes falling down. It looks like you cut the rope with your fingers. Some people don't like that. I'm magicians. They're funny. Some say, oh, that's the best part of the routine is when you cut it with your fingers. And others will tell me, oh, you should never do that. Never do that. Never confuse the process with the effect. Well, I do it because it gets a great reaction. It's an effect in itself, cutting the rope with your fingers. It's in the original George Sands routine, so I keep it in. Now, you're in this position. One rope will be longer than the other. That's why you didn't slide the ends all the way down to the exact opposite end of the real ends. It goes pretty close. So one's going to be longer than the other. You show the 2 ropes tied together. When you untie it, you can pause here for a second if you want to, but you don't have to. Then you put it like this. Now, at this point, you're in this position. Just like the cut and restored rope. You've got the little piece looped around the big piece. But like I say, they're not exactly the same length. Okay? So you say, oh, normally I cut it exactly opposite from the tied ends. Both lengths will be identical. But as you can see this evening, I'm a little off. And you're a little off. One's not quite the same as the other one. Now, you say, so I'll take the first end. Oh, what I do then is grab the 2 ends of the little piece with the right hand. So you're just transferring in the whole thing from your left hand to your right hand. The left hand now takes one end of, I don't know if it's the long piece or the short piece. I don't know if it makes any difference, but you just grab one, put it in the hand. I say, so I take the first end here, and then you transfer these 2 ends to the left hand. And you say, I'll put the second end where the first end used to be. And this is a variation on a restoration by Shigeo Takagi. What he used to do, as I recall, was he would just hold this, grab this, let everything fall, and it's restored. So that's a pretty good thing. Slidini, I remember, had this as well, but I changed it just a little bit. It's not a big thing, so I'm not going to say, oh, that's my idea. It's this. 2 pieces of rope. I'll put the first end here. I'll put the second end where the first end used to be. Then I pause and I say the magic words, con cuerdas cuadradas por lleno celecitas imigración. Now, you can use that if you want to, but if it doesn't fit you, don't try to make it fit. Here's what you do. You're grabbing this end like this. You've got your thumb and first finger available to grab this end, which is the same as the Takagi restoration. The only thing I do that's a little bit different is I grab that and twist. So I grab that as I cross my arms like this. And as soon as I cross the arms, then I drop it, and then I open again. If I do this right, that will create, what's the word, an inertia maybe, where you're starting to get it to twist. Because I want to grab it and I want it to twist, and then I want it to untwist. That's the whole goal, is to do that so that it'll twist and it looks like it restores there. Okay, so let me do this at regular speed. It's not at all hard. It'll just take a little bit of practice in front of the mirror. But it's the inertia. I think that's inertia. Hey, and I'll do it the opposite way. Last time I took the long end. This time I'll take the short end. Just to see. I think it works either way. So there's the 2 pieces. I said I'll put the first end here. I'll put the second end where the first end used to be. Yep. Squeeze and twist, and look what happens. It restores back to the original condition. So either end will be fine. What this does is it shows the restoration, and you have now placed the short end, the fake piece, on the right side instead of the left side. Now you're ready for the next phase. The next phase is this. So you've done the cutting, you've done the restoration. Now this is a bit weird, but it works. It works great. And it's done on the offbeat. That's another thing. Slidini was a master. When you're on, you're being strong, you're pointing out things that are important, you're stressing the effect, but after the effect, you can relax a little bit, take a little break, kind of move back. So you do this, and then on the offbeat, this is what you've got to do while they are applauding the restoration. This is what you do. Remember, your right hand is holding the two ends together of the short piece and the long piece. The left end goes into the right hand, right? Just like that. The little piece that's in the right hand now gets folded in half and switched in and placed into the left hand. So now the two ends are here, and that's folded in half. Now, that's kind of a weird thing, isn't it? But, you just did the restoration. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And you do that. That's it. Now, it looks like I'm going to reach down to the opposite end, which is the middle, because if those are the ends, the middle must be down here. But, of course, everything's fake. Everything's not what it appears to be. So you do this, you do this, you do this. Now, if you're holding these two real ends together, what happens is this is around the middle finger, and as long as you hold those two ends together, you can pretend like you're going down to the bottom of the rope, but you're bringing these two ends along. Sort of like what you did before when the ends were tied, but now they're not tied, they're just there. And from the back view, you can see it's going around your middle finger. But from here, it looks like those are the ends, and you're just reaching down to the middle. So it's pretty convincing. What that does is that puts the real ends here, and the real middle in the left hand. But the audience sees the fake ends in the left hand, and they think it's the middle that's in the right hand, because after you do that, I like to bundle up just a little piece of it. So it looks like, so the ends are there, and the middle's there. But actually, it's exactly the opposite. Those are fake ends. That's a fake middle. The real ends are here, and the real middle is there. So you do this. It looks like you fold it half. I make a little joke sometimes. Sometimes they don't. The idea of this mystery is to cause the ends to change places with the middle. Watch closely. There are many ways to do this. Here's one method. Watch closely. Keep it in. Leave it out. It's your call. When you're ready to do the magic transference or the transfer, the changing places of the ends with the middle, I take the first end, pull it in, just, inch it into your hand. And all you're doing is you're just crumpling up the little rope into your left hand. So the first end, it goes here until it's so finely minute it's invisible to the naked eye. Throw it into the air, watch the invisible flight, just like those doing the miser's dream, into the bucket. So you go into the air. And remember that thing with the cutting it with your fingers? You're going to do the same type of thing. That's a fake middle, because you're holding the ends together. You just put your thumb tip like that, so when it lands, you can pop it up. That's it. I mean, that's pretty simple. So I say the first end goes here, I toss it into the air, and it lands over there. For lack of technical variation, I'll repeat the illusion. All you do is you take the second end and you crumple that into your hand. So right now, that short piece has been completely crumpled into your left hand secretly. And you say the second end, this time it goes through the hollow core of the rope. So I like to follow it with my eyes. It's going through the hollow core of the rope. It lands over here. Now I've got the middle where the ends used to be, or the ends where the middle used to be, the middle where the ends used to be. So I say, now I've got the ends where the middle used to be. I will drop this. And this is just another personal thing. I don't want to drop that to show that the middle is over where the ends used to be. Because if I do that, this hand, which has that little bundle piece, is vulnerable. I prefer not to be vulnerable. So what I'll do is this. I say, it goes over there, drop that first, put this over here first, while this is still bundled in there, and then drop it. So now the hand is holding this, which is hiding that. So at regular speed, let's do it from the beginning, shall we? So you just did the restoration. Bata-bung. On the offbeat, you do this thing. You go down here. You get the extra fake middle. And you can pause here for a few moments, because now you're all set. And I like to make this smaller. See, if it's way up there like that, if it's too big, you're not going to get that popping action. But if it's like this, and then you pull it, and actually it could be right on your thumb at this point. So you say the first one goes through. It goes, no, it doesn't go through. The first one becomes so small, finally minute, it goes, there's the first one. The second one gets crumpled through. It goes through the hollow core of the rope, lands on the other side. Now I've got the ends where the middle used to be. The middle is where the ends used to be. And now you do this again. And remember, you look at the clean side. This is the dirty side because you've got that little piece crumpled up. But it's holding the rope, so that's okay. But you do this, and I usually bundle this up a couple times and hold it in a pause position for applause in the left hand. All right? Now, this is a nice little moment. You've got the little tiny piece in your hand. You've done a lot of magic with this rope. What have you done? You opened it up. You took the ends off. You showed a circle of rope with no ends. You put the ends back on. You cut it with your fingers. You showed 2 pieces. You restored the 2 pieces. Then, what was the third thing? You folded it in half. You made the ends one at a time, changed places with the middle. I mean, you've done a lot of magic with this rope. So there's some heat on it, which is great because this rope, now that this extra piece is hidden, is completely clean. Now, here's the timing on getting rid of the extra piece. I say, sometimes when I do this, yada, 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 after the thunder of applause subsides, people say, oh, that's that fake, phony, tricky rope you buy at the magic store. No, this is not even fake, phony, tricky rope. No, sir. I got that stuff. So notice I'm holding it all this time with the same hand that's got this hidden. When I say, no, 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 I got that stuff right here. Then for the first time, just for a fraction of a second, you're holding the rope. That's a good, comfortable position. As soon as you transfer the rope to your right hand, immediately pick up the middle-sized piece. Say, yeah, no, that's this rope here. Then immediately go back to this one. Say, no, that's this rope here. This is real rope. This is ordinary rope. And then you hand this out for examination. Somebody on your right, perhaps. Okay? So that's out of your hands. And now, the little piece, which is secretly concealed in your left hand, is holding the middle-sized piece, which, remember, in real life, is white. It doesn't have to be white, as long as all 3 are the same color. Okay? So this is just for explanation purposes. I know I've said it before, but I know it's going to happen. I'm going to get an email from somebody to say, hey, I tried doing that rope routine with 3 different colored ropes, and people know what I'm doing. It's like, yeah. So same color. So you hand out the long piece. You've got the middle-sized piece here. I would say to this person who's examining the rope, I say, look at it, make sure it's solid. And here's what I do. Make sure it's solid. I'll grab one end of the middle-sized piece with the little finger and ring finger. I'll use the first finger and second finger and thumb to reach into my hand and find the end of the small piece, either end, it doesn't matter. And I'll use it as a gesture. I'll say, here, pull on it, make sure it doesn't stretch or shrink. And when I use that gesture, I'm pulling the short piece now out of the left hand, and it is added on to the middle-sized piece. Now, I want it to look kind of natural, so I'd like to hold the rope like this so that both of these ends are relatively the same length, hanging outside of the hand. So pull on it. Yeah, make sure it doesn't stretch or shrink. And you, sir, you might want to look at this one. I'm sorry, but I can't let you see this right now. But I'll tell you what. For you, I'll let you see a little piece. Now, this is another really ridiculous thing, but it's a great little effect. You have these 2 pieces held together in your right hand. You've just done this. You can show how solid it is. Pull on it. I can't let you see the whole piece, but here, maybe a little bit. I really like the idea. If you can, try to bring everything up so you're holding it just with your first and second finger of each hand, and your other fingers are open, and you just go like that, and you just pluck it off. You say, well, I can't let you see it just yet, but I'll tell you what. For you, here, you can look at a little piece, and you give them the little piece. Say, wow, you just had a piece of rope, and you just pulled off a little piece. So you hand that out. Now you have the middle-sized piece all by itself. Everything else, or the other 2 pieces, are in the audience. Now you tie what is known, I think it's called the pretzel knot, and I do remember I learned this from the Mark Wilson course of magic. Mark Wilson course in magic? Probably. This is what it is. You hold the middle-sized piece about an inch or so from the end. Your other hand takes the opposite end. Now this is important. You go away from your body, so this way. And you're going to wrap it like that, across the front, and clip it. Now that's not hard to do at all, but it's important that you do it this way. There's the end in your left hand. This goes behind the hand. Another little tip is I don't go way behind the hand like at the wrist. I try to go behind the hand just like at the fingers. So it's just draped over a little bit. Because the less it's draped, the less you have to undrape it. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. So you show the rope. You go like this. You hold words. You clip it like that. Now this hand goes into the loop or into this. Once again, you want to just use the backs of the fingers. Don't put your whole hand in it and grab it, because then all of this has to come off of the back of your hand. So try to get into the habit of just grabbing it like that. So just the backs of the fingers have the rope. You grab the end that's pointing upwards. This probably sounds more complicated than it is, but if you do it right, it works every time. If you don't do it right, it's not going to work. That's just how it is. So once again, it's this. This goes this way. You hold where it crosses. Just the backs of the fingers, like at the knuckles. Go here, you grab the end that's pointing up, and as soon as you grab that end that's pointing upwards in your left hand, you start to twirl it. So your thumb would go to your right, the index finger towards your left, or if you're looking at it like a clock face from the top down, that would be counterclockwise. Don't do it the other way. It's going to create the opposite effect from what you want. So grab this, twirl it towards you, counterclockwise. Now, You let go with your thumb of the left hand, but the first and second fingers are still clipping that other end. That comes out, and remember, it's not like it has to come out all the way off the back of the hand. It's just the back of the fingers. So you don't have to do a lot of movement there. And if you do that right, as soon as that starts to come out, twirl that top part towards you. So that would be this way. Okay? So the top towards you. Now, this drops off of that part of the hand, and if you twirl everything right, it will hold itself. And that looks really good. That's not a knot. But if you keep it twirled, but not too much. You don't want to twirl it. This just takes practice. You'll know how much. You can tighten it. You see the knot get smaller and smaller and smaller. I mean, doesn't that look convincing? That's the pretzel knot. This is not a knot. It's not a knot. If I shake it, you'll see it just dissolves. It's nothing. But because you're twirling the rope, in fact, let me show you with the white rope. If you're twirling the rope like this and like this, if you don't twirl it, it's just going to dissolve prematurely. But if you keep it twirled towards yourself, like this and like this, it will hold its shape. If you twirl it too much, it'll work, but it's not good. So just practice this a bunch of times. You'll learn how much to twirl it so that you can pull it, make it tighter and tighter. And this is one of the reasons for using the cotton rope as well. If you use really slick rope, like nylon rope, it just doesn't hold itself very well. But this white rope is perfect, 100% cotton. So that's the move. And then you can even let it hang a little bit, and that looks good too. Okay? Now you don't dissolve it visually. What I do is I cover it with my other hand and pretend like I'm making it tighter and tighter and smaller until it becomes so small you can't even see it. But you can feel it. There's a bump. That's part of the gag. So that's the thing. Now you're ready to reproduce the knot. And I'm going to show you how to do it with this regular size piece, or this white piece. Because this rope, even though it's a different color and it's easy to follow, it's just too lightweight. This is sponge core rope. And it's okay. But the heavier the rope, the better. So for this, here's the instantaneous knot. You'll find this in a lot of different books. What happens is you're holding the end of the rope about an inch or so from the very tip between your first finger and thumb of your left hand, and that's pointing towards the audience, away from your body. You grab the opposite end of the rope, hold it in the exact same way between the thumb and first finger of the right hand. The only difference is that end is pointing towards you. This is very important. In fact, I've even done this as a do-as-I-do trick, where I say, just put your hands together, go like this, separate your hands, you have a knot. If you do it right, it works every time. If they don't do it right, like they're both pointing the same way, it's no matter how many times you switch them, it's just not going to make a knot. So one end is pointing away from you, the opposite end is pointing towards you, and you're holding each end with the thumb and first finger only. There's a space between the first finger and the other three fingers, and there's a space between this first finger and other three fingers. What happens is the two hands come together. You're going to clip the end in your right hand, the very tip of it, between the left first finger and second finger. At the exact same time, you're going to clip the end in the left hand between the right first finger and thumb, like that. If you do this together, it looks like this. Clip, clip, let go with your thumbs. And that's what you have right there. If you separate your hands, that will create a knot. When you have the ropes pointing in the proper directions, and if you remember to grab the end in the opposite hand between where it's being held in the opposite hand and the tip. Don't clip it there. You've got to clip it between where it's being held and the end of the rope. Switch, let go with your thumbs, separate your hands, you've got a knot. That's the instantaneous knot. It's normally done secretly, like with a roped handkerchief. As you cover it with another handkerchief, you secretly put a knot in it. Then you tie a slip knot in another handkerchief, and the slip knot, dissolves and it lands over there, and you pull the handkerchief off and there's a knot. It's a great little thing. But normally it's done secretly under cover of draping one handkerchief under another handkerchief that's being held by a spectator. This is the same technique exactly. You do the same move. The only difference is, after you do the switch and let go with your thumbs, you produce the knot magically by shaking the rope off your fingertips, like this. Ha-choo! And if you shake it, it makes the knot. Now, I don't know if it makes any difference, but for my own amusement, I turn sideways a little bit, and I ha-choo! And it just, I don't know. It's just, you do that in front of the mirror a few times. Maybe you'll enjoy it as much as I do. But it's really simple. Just practice it. One end pointing away, one end pointing towards you. Show it like this. I bring the ends together because I'm going to shake it. See, that's another thing. So you don't shake rope like that. You shake rope like that. So I show it like this, do the secret switch, achoo, shake it, and it should look like a knot just visually appears. So then I let go of one end, I show the knot. I used to hand this out. You know what? Here's another little tip. I used to just hand this out and I'd say, take a look at that rope. Well, sometimes somebody who gets this rope for fun, I guess, they pull the knot as tightly as they can get it. And then they hand it back to me with the knot tied really tightly. And it's no good. I have them untie it. I say, no, you return it the way I gave it to you. You know, nice loose knot or untie the knot. Sometimes I'll say, untie the knot, take a look at the rope. I don't even do that anymore. After I produce the knot by magic, I show the knot, make sure they realize it's a real knot. I'll untie it most often and say, here, you might want to take a look at that. Depending on the person. If you think there's any chance they might give you trouble, you might want to take the precaution of untying the knot first before you hand it out. So at this point in the routine, you've done a heck of a lot of magic. Everything that you've used is being examined by various members of the audience. That's a good position to be in. Now, after all that, you're finally ready to begin the Professor's Nightmare sequence, okay? First thing I do is I say to the person on the right who has the long piece, who among you has the big one, has the long rope? And somebody tosses it. If you want to use the Billy McComb gag about on the count of 3, now's a good time to do it. So you get the long rope back first, you show it, you make sure that they acknowledge it's an ordinary piece of rope. Then you say, how about the little piece? May I have that? And if you want to use a gag about 1, 2, 3, they'll toss it to you in the proper manner. You can look like the first one. That's how it's supposed to be done. But you take the short piece in your left hand, the long piece in your right hand, and I say, notice the ropes are different lengths. This is a good position to be in. Okay? Sometimes I'll switch them. In fact, usually I'll take them back like this, and I will switch them. It doesn't make that much difference, but I prefer to have the short piece in the right hand, the long piece in the left hand. Because what I'm going to do next is I have handed out the middle-sized piece to somebody on my left. That's sort of important because that's the misdirection. I'm going to retrieve the rope from somebody on my left, so I'm going to take this short piece, place it in the left hand so that my right hand's available to retrieve the rope. Now that's where you do the secret move. You cross the short piece over the end like this, just like we did at the very beginning where all 3 of these lengths should be about the same. Okay? And it is a cross. It is an X. It's a 90-degree angle if it was like that, but it's still a 90-degree angle like that. So I say short piece, long piece, notice they're different lengths, otherwise what I'm about to show you would be completely pointless or even more pointless. Cross it, and your excuse is so your right hand can take this rope back. Now, as you take the middle-sized rope back, or toss it to me on the count of 3, here's what you need to do. It's very simple, and you're in perfect position for it. You're going to switch one end of the long piece downwards and one end of the short piece upwards. And here's how, watch how easy that is. It's this, the middle finger is here, it pushes up on that, and your thumb pulls down on that. I mean, really, that's not that hard. So 2 separate pieces, go like this. May I have the middle-sized piece? You do this under cover, and you're there. So, nice thing about when you get this piece back, apparently you're in exactly the same position you were in when you had the short piece next to the long piece, except you've done this secret move, this thing. Now, when you put this in the middle between the other 2 pieces, it looks as it should. It looks like you've got a short piece on one side, middle-sized piece in the middle, and the long rope on the other side. But you've already secretly done that loop. So you're ready for the Professor's Nightmare stretching sequence. And here's a nice way to do it. You say, if I gather the opposite ends of the long piece, hold it very cleanly, the middle-sized piece very cleanly, and the short piece, I mean, really, you don't do anything now because you've already done it. So as soon as you take that, make it crystal clear that you're doing nothing except holding them in full view. And I say stretcho, and all that stuff, but it looks like they see it. Don't just throw this part away. Don't just say, and I gather up the ends and now they're all the same. You know, I mean, come on. You're working hard to get to this position. So milk it, man. Get all you can out of it. So they see 3 different sized pieces of rope. No question about it. They've examined them. You're taking them back. They're at the tips of your fingers. Apparently you're hiding nothing. You gather the opposite ends very, very cleanly. You do nothing on the moment of the heat. And you just slowly start to stretch them. Stretcho, and all, whatever you want to do. So, one little touch, as soon as I start to stretch them at the fingertips. When it's about halfway stretched, then I will grab it with the rest of the fingers like that, like 2 fists. The reason for that is I'm stretching it some more and some more. While I'm stretching it, I want to get that middle-sized piece, that red piece, away from the middle of the other two, and I want to switch it so that it's on my right side. I mean, that's not a hard thing to do. You're stretching, you've got all this time, and you just bring it up and just move it. But you're still stretching, because when you finish, you can either drop those one at a time or drop them all together. You want to show the ropes in your left hand with the real middle-sized piece on your right side. So you're in position for the false count. The false count is wonderful. I believe, it's just my opinion, but if all you learn from this entire DVD is how to do this false count, you will have received great value. Because you can use this for the rainbow ropes, you can use it for your own handling of the professor's nightmare, and if it's done properly, it's perfect. Having said that, if it's not done properly, it's as bad as any others. But here's what you do. Remember, the middle-sized rope is really on your right side. The two faked pieces are on the left side. So here's the handling. Just like before, the instantaneous knot, thumb and first finger only grabs the top of the real middle-sized rope on the right side. And don't pull it straight up. If you pull it straight up, you're going to cover your face. That's not ever good. So pull it horizontally so it's draped over the middle fingertip like that. So you're pulling it horizontally, you're looking over there, until you get about the same distance, showing from the top of here as here, and your thumb goes underneath and pops it up. That probably sounds confusing, but it's just this. Rope number 1, I'm getting close, put the thumb under it, pop it up. And now I show, look, it does not stretch, it does not shrink. It's a good, strong, solid piece of rope. Fold it in half, hold it in the right hand, and look at it. That's rope number 1. As I'm doing rope number 1, you're holding this way at the top, right where the rope is folded in half. But the thumb and first finger only. The other 3 fingers, middle finger, ring finger, little finger, goes inside, underneath. That way I can let go with my thumb, and the bundle is not going to fall. It's going to rest on the middle finger. So that's all done as you show this and this. And that's the secret preparation. Now, the reason for putting the middle finger, ring finger, and little finger underneath is so that I can let go with my thumb and it's not going to fall. I have to let go with my thumb because I want to make a big space between my thumb and my first finger in the left hand. At the same time, I'm going to let that drop, and there's a big space between my first finger, second, third, and little fingers in the right hand. This is crucial. So let's just stop for about 5 minutes so you could see this exact finger position. Remember, there's a big space between my thumb and first finger of the left hand, which is holding the 2 ropes. There's a big space between my first finger, second, third, and little fingers in the right hand. Because what's going to happen, it's almost like a top change. If you do card magic, this is the basic version of the top change. The hands are going to come together, and in one action, that's important, one action, you're going to leave the single rope into the big space in the left hand between the thumb and first finger. At the exact same time, you're going to clip the 2 ends of the short piece like this, and let go with the thumb. And then you can separate your hands. And that's that. So that's 1. Remember, it's folded in half. As you show this, you get this ready. 2, once again, just leave that and take that at the same time. Do not make 2 separate moves out of it. Do not hesitate. Do not pause. If you can't do it smoothly, if you have to do it slowly, then do them all slowly. Don't count the first one quickly and then fumble for the second one and then do the third one quickly. It's no good. Do them all, if you can, exactly at the same tempo. Now, the tempo, like I said, doesn't have to be fast, but consistent. So there's rope number. Okay, I'll start from the beginning. All I've got is this and this. I say rope number 1. I want you to see it does not stretch or shrink. It's a good, strong, solid piece of rope. I've just prepared for this. Rope number 2 also does not stretch or shrink. So when you take rope number 2, remember you're clipping it between the first 2 fingers like that, and you do this. When you get near the end, I pop that end up, and here's a little tip. As soon as I pop that end up, those are clipped between the first 2 fingers. I want to put my thumb here and move that first finger over to the audience's side. So now it's going from here to here. It's not a big deal, but I want it to look consistent. That's exactly how it should look. It looks like you've just shown the second rope very cleanly. Pull on it. It doesn't stretch or shrink. Fold it in half, only to be consistent, and then let it drop. And then the third one, do exactly the same way. Rope number 3. It does not stretch or shrink. It's a good, strong, solid piece. So just for my own amusement, let me take one moment, do the false count again with the 3 different colored ropes. Then I'll do it one more time with the 3 of the same color so you can see exactly what it looks like. So you just did stretcho, stretcho, stretcho. Remember, look at there's the first rope. It's a solid piece. It does not stretch or shrink, not to be confused with the second piece, which is exactly the same. It does not stretch or shrink, and that's exactly the same as the third piece. So each one is shown exactly the same way. And even just that little stuff about getting the ropes from between your first two fingers to here, don't make a big thing out of it, but do it, because it really makes it work a lot more smoothly. So let's do this with the regular ropes. And I must admit, this is one of my favorite moments in the rope routine. I've done this many times at the Magic Castle in the parlor of prestidigitation. And the audience is just right up close. And I don't have to look at my hands doing it. I mean, you train your hands to do what they do. It's muscle memory. I love this moment where I get to look in the audience's eyes while I'm counting the ropes. And it's almost a subliminal, like nodding. It's like, because everything you say is true. You say, look, rope number 1, it's a good, strong, solid piece. It does not stretch or shrink. Nothing you can question about that. And rope number 1 is exactly the same length as rope number 2, which, by the way, also does not stretch or shrink. And rope number 2 is the same length as rope number 3. It's a very convincing illusion. Now, for laymen, I do not say, and a very convincing false count. I do that at magic conventions for magicians, because they all know the trick anyway, and they say, hey, yeah, that is a good false count. Okay, now, you've just done the Professor's Nightmare. You've just stretched them. They all become the same length. So at this point in the routine, you are in this position. You've got the little one, you've got this one, you've got this one. You've just done the count. So that was rope number 2, that was rope number 3. Now what you're going to do is change these 3 pieces of rope that are apparently identical in length back to the 3 different lengths like they were at the beginning. And this method I love. I learned this from Dan Garrick, from his lecture. I think it was called Ticklers and Teasers. I think it was called The Professor's Daydream. This was my favorite part of that routine, is it's a very convincing method. You've shown the 3 ropes. I take the regular middle-sized piece, just maybe drape it over your right arm temporarily so that your hands are available to tie this into a knot. Now, I use this John Cornelius touch, where you've got this, it's looped. Give the left end, the end that's on the audience's side, 1 extra revolution towards you and around like that. And so you can do this. Now, when it's a blue piece that's small and a white piece that's long, it's not as good. But you tell me, how does this look? When they're both the same color, it looks like 2 pieces of rope anyway, right? But when you do this, and this is the John Cornelius part, which I enjoy doing this. 2 pieces of rope, you give it that 1 extra thing, you show it like that. I mean, you can even let go. And this, for some reason, this back and forth stuff, you're just holding on to everything and you pull so that the left end is pulled out quite a bit, but you don't let go of the right end. Don't let go. Big mistake. Keep it wrapped around like this and hold on to that and then go back and forth. Just say, don't make, look everybody. Just do it once or twice. Let go if you want to. Pull that white rope, the short rope, taut. This is the Dr. Jacob Daly knot again. See, you've already learned it. You're already done. You've just done this. You pull the short rope taut so it's straight. So it's actually the long rope that's looped around the straight short piece. You tie a simple overhand knot on top pretty loosely. And then when you pull, the audience sees it tighten up, and that turns that into a sliding knot. So you've upset the knot so it can slide. So you do that, reach down here, apparently tie these 2 the same way. But here you tie a granny knot as opposed to a square knot. Square knot would be the left over the right, and then the right over the left from your view. So that way the ends will be parallel when you finish. You see how they're all like parallel? A granny knot is the opposite. It's 2 overhand knots, but they're tied in the same way. Left over the right, so the left end is going over the right, and then the new left end goes over the right again. And that way when you finish, they will not be parallel, they'll be perpendicular. The only reason, it's not a big deal, but I would like this knot to look similar to this knot. That's the only thing. So you've tied those ends together. You've tied these ends together. You have the end of the middle-sized piece. Now we're ready for the big finish. We're almost home. Almost home. You grab the end of the rope with your right hand, stroke your left hand through until you get to the first knot. Hold it in your hand. Put it in your other hand, but don't do it openly so they can see everything. Just kind of put it in the other hand, but do it sort of hidden. The reason for that is because you're going to slide down to the second knot, which should be small enough to hide in your hand. Pretend to put that knot in your other hand, but don't. And you secretly slide it, not off the other end, not completely off like the cut and restored rope where you go to the pocket for woofle dust. You slide it till it's near the end, and then secretly put it inside. So it just looks like you went 1, 2, 3, do your magic, say the secret words, It changes. Now, that's a very strong thing. You say, even though the ropes are tied together with double knots, they still magically change back to their 3 completely different original lengths. And that's what the audience sees. They believe that's a short piece tied onto a long piece in the middle, which is tied onto the middle-sized piece. Of course, all you really did was you slid the knot secretly from the middle, where it looks like 3 pieces the same length, to the end. Now, the final bit is you untie the ropes. I don't expect you to take my word for it. Here, you might want to look at them. You untie the ropes doing a secret switch. The good news is you don't have to use that switch that we've used a couple of times earlier, where one end goes in, the other end comes out. That short piece that's tied around the long piece, the short piece is the knot itself. So that means if you show this and you grab onto that short piece of rope, if you grab onto that knot anywhere, just grab onto the knot, you're holding the short piece. So once you pinch it with your left thumb and first finger, your right hand unties everything else away from it. Just don't let go of this, and you will be holding the short piece, which you can hand to somebody over here, perhaps the same person that examined it the first time, and say, not to be confused with the middle-sized piece, that would be for yourself right here, sir. And the long piece you hand back to the person over here, and guess what? You've just done 10 minutes of wonderful magic with 3 ordinary pieces of rope. You can do it surrounded, you can do it close up in a restaurant, parlor situation, strolling at a cocktail party, on stage for 1,000 people. And when you take the ropes back, sometimes I will even reset it right in front of people and put it away, and it's all ready to go again. So that is the details. I can't imagine anything else you might want to know about it, but that's the details for Daryl's rope routine. I hope you will use it and get a lot of enjoyment out of it, and I thank you for your kind attention.